AI video generation is not a one-size-fits-all type of content production. There are a ton of different apps out there, and it can feel really overwhelming trying to figure out which app to use to create your AI videos. So in this video, I'm going to break down the apps that I use and why I use them, talk about their strengths, their weaknesses, give you some tips and tricks on how to prompt for each one, and talk about why I use them and what I like about them and what I don't like about them. The three AI video apps that I'm going to talk about in this video are Kling, Luma, and Higgsfield. Those are my go-to. Each one serves a specific purpose. Kling 1.6 is amazing for cinematic consistency and making sure that your entire video looks just like the image that you fed it. Kling 2.0 is an incredible workhorse. It can do almost anything you tell it to. It's all about the prompting in Kling 2.0, but it's expensive. Luma Labs, amazing. It is my go-to. I want something strange. I want to try something. I want to test something. I want to do something that's not working in Kling. I can rely on Luma to always get the job done. Well, almost always. It can get weird sometimes. We'll get into that. The other one is Higgsfield. Higgsfield is a precision tool. I use Higgsfield for specific camera shots that I know it can perform perfectly. And also the cool thing with Higgsfield is it sometimes gives you unexpected surprises in your outputs because of their great enhance prompt feature. So first I'm going to talk about Kling. Kling is good for consistency and high quality and really capturing that cinematic look that I like to incorporate in a lot of my videos. Text to video is okay. I think you could probably dial it in if you were really specific with your prompts. Whenever you do text to video in Kling, it always seems to apply this same like kind of lighting style and realism, which isn't bad. Like everything has its place, I think. It's hard to say, like, unless there's tons of artifacting, I think it's hard to say that any particular generation from text with AI is bad, but it's not always exactly what you want. This is not what I wanted. It followed some things. It had the light blues, the oranges, a roaring fire in a cave. The wall behind glistens with gold veins. The fire casts moving shadows upon the wall of gold veins. The shadows are men dressed like gold prospectors swinging mining pickaxes. So in a lot of ways, it did what it's supposed to be. I mean, it got the gold, it got these veins, it got the burning fires, it had the swinging axe, they look like prospectors. It just didn't make them shadows, but it made them in shadow, which overall is very impressive, but it has a very particular style. The way the video looks, it almost looks like a stage play or like a PBS documentary. Here's another text to video prompt from Kling. And as you can see, like it has that same style where it's just like this low quality camera. So maybe whatever this model was trained on for its text to video was a lot of like these free PBS style documentaries, so it all is just like low quality, like cheaper cameras. But it's funny how that happens because I did put like cinematic 4K realism Kodak portrait film. It just doesn't apply any of the style that I put into the prompt, so that's kind of interesting. Same here, like again, it's doing this thing. I don't hate the way this looks. I think it's pretty cool. I think it has a time and a place if I wanted to use it, but it was not at all what I was looking for, or it wouldn't match. But like, look at how good that is. Like, this is insane quality. You know, like I said, the cinematic reliability of it is great, and especially these things that are just like keeping this level of detail from the original image and doing subtle effects that bring a sense of realism and life to the image. It's just, it doesn't do much, right? And that's nice. Sometimes you want something that doesn't hurt the original image, because the original image is so powerful that like all you need is a little bit of motion. And I find that Kling 1.6 is really good at that. It just captures emotion from like minimal motion a lot of times. 1.6 was never really great for action. I mean, it would do weird stuff like this, right? Where it just like morphs and things get strange. Always like bendy objects and stuff. You know, 1.6 wasn't always good. You could say like rotate like a whirlpool, and it wasn't really doing that. But that's where 1.5 comes into handy. Comes in handy. It's something you want to use when you're trying to get specific motions, because you can use the motion brush like I did here, and I just drew a bunch of spirals on this to say, like, I want this to spin. And I used the same prompt that I had in that other one, but it made it spin like a whirlpool because I drew the motion of the whirlpool. If you're doing video generation, you want to go up to the top and you go to Kling 1.5. And in Kling 1.5, you can go to motion brush. So we'll use this image of these really colorful ribbons all twirled together that I made. They have this organic feel to them. I don't know, they kind of look like candy. They look like something I would eat, and that's probably not great. I don't know what that says about me. But what's cool about this is you can go with 6 different areas that you can paint on here, and each area can have its own movement. So I'm going to change the size of the brush. I think you can keyboard shortcut it. Nope. Yeah, with I don't know what that button is, the brackets, the bracket key. Those go up and down. So I'm gonna put them pretty big because I want to get like each of these as a different one. We'll see what it does. But basically you can paint over all this stuff. And then I'm gonna say track this area. And so hopefully that one squirms like that. And then area 2, I'll get this whole pink one. And now we have all these crazy movements that are applied to just these individual pieces. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, generate that. 1.5 takes a little bit longer, obviously, because you did all that cool squiggly shit on it. And so, like, obviously it's going to take longer because now it has to, like, learn to read the language of your squiggles. But once it does that, you know, then you get the ultimate squiggle machine, and you have a prompt and an image that could make anybody throw up. So, like, if that's what you're going for, then congratulations. All right, so here's that 1.5 that we just made, and you can see how much crazy motion came into it because of those squiggly lines that I drew. It just went to pure chaos, which is pretty cool. Like, it's a very strange effect. And it's like, you know, this is a way that you can use Kling to maintain that, like, visual quality while introducing weird elements to the image or very specific forms of motion. 1.6 is just reliable. If you know how to prompt with 1.6 and you're not expecting anything crazy from it, it's always reliable. For example, if you want just a slow camera move or a handheld move or something, and you want to tell it which direction of the person to point in on, it's going to be great. And what it's great at isn't just the move and that simple adherence, because most can do that. What it's really good at is those little details in the shot that give it life as the camera moves, you know? And it's the simple emotions that I think help with it. Like this one, I just put depressed, and so he just looks kind of depressed the whole time. But it's very simple prompting with Kling, I've found, especially with 1.6. Actually, let's say that. It's very simple prompting with 1.6 for Kling. Slow camera push in on the face of the young man riding the bike, right? You see he stays moving. So 1.6 is awesome. I'll always use 1.6 for stuff. 2.0's prompted here is just next level. And it's actually something where you have to be quite specific with what you want, because it's going to give you exactly what you write in your prompt. But here's an example of 1.6 versus 2.0. So with this one, I had slow camera push in, the orange lights on the walls flicker fast. The light overhead turn on and off, and in a pulsating rhythm as the man in the hooded white robes walks toward the camera. It did the slow camera push in, it got the features, but it didn't do the lights on the walls flicker fast, the lights overhead turn on and off and pulsate in a rhythm. It didn't do any of that. That's where 1.6 starts to fail, is it can't really generally keep those intense prompts unless you write like a much more complicated thing. I'll touch on that in a second. But what 2.0 does is it actually listens to those things, right? So I used the exact same prompt, and look how it did this time. It created this pulse with the lights on the top going back and forth. Even the sides are pulsating a little bit. Maybe the fidelity or the quality, whatever you want to call it, like in the distance in the background, like in here, you know, isn't great. And he's walking backwards for some reason. which I don't mind because I'm like, whatever, I'll just change the direction in the edit. So it didn't listen to that part, but it got all the other parts right. But I bet if I changed it and put this part at the front and then the flashing at the end, it would give me a different result. I'm gonna use the exact same thing. I'm going to put this at the top. Camera push in, the man in the hooded white robes walks toward the camera. The orange lights flicker fast, lights overhead. So we'll see if he walks toward the camera this time. Spend that 100 credits. That's the other thing with Kling 2.0 is though it is expensive, so you have to kind of know what you're going for, and you don't really experiment with it unless you got the money to experiment with it. And here's that 2.0, and you can see now that I changed the order of the prompt, where before it had the orange lights flickering first and then the information about the man in the hooded white robes walking toward camera last. Putting the man walking toward camera first in the prompt made him now walk toward camera. And it's a much better shot because the lights are moving dynamic. So where I could have just reversed it and fixed it, I mean, look at how it's reacting now with him. Even though the lights in the ceiling are just flashing, I did like the pulsating on the other one better. But yeah, it's interesting to see how you can shift the final image or the final video based on how you weight your structure of your prompt. Very important. So with Kling 1.5 and 1.6, the prompting needs to stay very simple, and you don't introduce a lot of action or motion or like asking for changes and stuff. But you can give specific camera moves and you can give specific emotions, and it handles those very well. With like minimal action, minimal motion. With 1.5, you can draw motion onto it or use specific camera motion, which is cool too. And 1.6 is relatively cheap. It's 35 credits per try. So you can do a couple of generations at the same time and get some nice different results. With 2.0, you can do stuff that's much more complex because it follows much stronger prompt adherence. But you have to be very cautious of what order you're putting your words and your actions and your asks in your prompt for 2.0. So these are some examples of videos that had much more complex prompts in Kling 1.6. And the thing about writing really complex prompts in 1.6 is that it requires a ton of explanation around the prompt. The prompt needs to be as complex in detail as it is in like length. It needs to be very specific and tell a little bit of a story even. As you can see for these, the prompt is first person POV, hands reach for a skull. As fingers pull the skull apart, a smooth pulsating sack shifting between shades of iridescent cyan, deep reds, and phosphorescent greens is revealed. Inside the sack, a curled entity stirs, its semi-translucent skin revealing an intricate nervous system glowing from within. The creature's tentacle-like appendages uncoil, pressing against the membrane of the sack, twitching as though attempting to escape. A thick, slick substance seeps from the skull's edges, dripping onto the marble surface. So it captured everything. And the idea here is that you're introducing a ton of new elements into this image. And so because these elements aren't like a part of the image trying to be manipulated, and they're Kling just creating its own elements as if they were from the text to video generator, I think it has an easier time using the overall image as a style reference and a look reference, and then just generating its own images and turning it into basically a text to video prompted video rather than an image video, because the skull isn't doing anything. And I think the big difference is if I said anything about the skull moving or doing anything crazy itself, it would become more difficult. But because I just asked for hands to come in and tear it apart, it introduces a new element immediately and just changes the whole ability of it. So if you want to do stuff like that, that's the best way to do it, is to write like very intricate style prompts to express what's happening. So if Kling is my cinematic workhorse, then Luma Dream Machine is my dream machine. It is my, I don't know what I want, give me something hey, what strangeness can we brew together? I don't know what else to say. It's a weird beast. It is so fickle and confusing, and it creates very lifelike images and videos from its prompts, from text prompts. Like, this is just text to video, an accidental thing where I was working on this shot of Trump, and I used the same prompt, but this image was from Midjourney, and you can see what I mean immediately about, like, it'll do weird stuff, but then it also just does, like, weird stuff, right? Like, his thing just catches on fire, and, like, he does the whole smoking action in reverse, but it holds up really well. But then there's, like, elements in the smoke that you can see, and this is something that happens in a lot of the Luma videos, especially in, like, the VFX areas or, like, the transitions, moments where there's, like, a lot of motion. You get these, like, weird pixelations that are very just, like, square in, I don't know, it takes away from, like, the quality. It really lowers it quickly. But if you're not looking for it and it's mixed into a video, it's not super noticeable. I was trying to write this prompt for this image, but I accidentally did it without applying the image, and this is what this prompt gave me. The prompt was, a thin line of smoke is trailing from the burning cigar. We slowly push in on the man sitting in the bubbling hot tub. He shakes his head no. And just text to video, this is what it gave me. And I think what's incredible here is the quality of the cigar and, like, how well he holds it up, and just that, like, he's in water, he's wet. It looks a little weird, maybe, like it's not getting the continuation of the clothes under the surface right. Like, sees his skin color or something there. Could just be the way the water reflection, but it looks like he's in short sleeves when he's not. So Luma's capable of, like, really wild, weird stuff. And I love just how it applies crazy actions and motions to clips and the facial expressions, and, like, everything's still holding up, right? It blurs a little weird. It's not like a pure bokeh. It's like a square kind of pixel thing. So it doesn't always work, obviously. And a lot of times I don't like upgrading to 4K because it has this, like, strange, that artifacting that you can see all over the coins that happens. Like, I don't know, 4K seems to not be great. Upres doesn't always work super well. So I generally don't upres anything. It also, like, overwrites the video, it seems like. So yeah, I never really upres, I just save the originals. But I like, you know, it does weird stuff like this all the time, where this prompt, what did it say? A man screaming and freaking out at his computer. And it gave me papers flying out of his body and a second person running out of the back. And that's kind of the thing, like, Luma just does that stuff often. But that's kind of its charm, is you can sometimes get some pretty cool stuff out of Luma when it does that, because you never really know what you're going to get, and you know you're going to get weird elements. And a lot of the editing with AI video is, like, choosing the right moments from these clips for what you want. But I mean, just look at this. Like, look at the creativeness of what this gave me, even if it's not the perfect thing. Here, I don't like the way this looks. It breaks everything down. It doesn't handle the changing, the motion, the fast, the dancing. But then, like, I could get it very specific here, have her butt shaking into the camera. And, you know, these dances in the background aren't perfect at all. But, like, this is great motion that's just on Ray 2. The woman in the foreground center frame dances with her back to camera, shaking her butt at the camera, and it did it. This is for a music video. I'm not just making butt shaking videos, though I could be. I'm not going to judge if you are. The main thing about Luma is if you have the unlimited plan, which I think is $100 a month, you can generate unlimited videos. And so even if you don't always get a great quality video on the first try, it's very easy to just go back and make another one. And so often I'll generate, like, 3 or 4 videos of the same clip or image or whatever, just to see what variety it gives me in seeds. And once you get used to these different apps, you can get pretty consistently good at, like, what you're wanting. I don't find that Luma follows camera prompt adherence very well, but it does follow action guidelines well and sort of associates the camera to the action. It does work well if you say handheld camera. You know, you can say push in and pull back and that kind of stuff, but I tend to get like weird results that aren't as consistent as Kling for like the very simple moves that are sort of like a portrait. There's action stuff for Luma and Kling now to a certain degree with 2.0, but it's expensive. But for Luma, it's like, I mean, this is great. You know, like this is very simple and works really well. And that's a fire roaring inside a casino. Men in white hoods walk toward the fire, and it just captures the essence so well. Another one that like to showcase how it really reacts weird from this like that Tari caveman video that I did. This was one that ended up working out really well. That was, you know, a static handheld close-up shot of a caveman standing in a cave tunnel being blasted in the face by wind. The light on his face increases in exposure. The wind blows the caveman's hair and beard off, and he becomes the Chad Man. And I gave it 2 images, a starting frame and an ending keyframe. And it was able to give me this. The starting keyframe was this image, and the ending keyframe was that image. And so it was able to, you know, go between the two. I think with Luma prompting, a big part is if you're doing images, it's being pretty simple and straightforward. And letting it decide the camera motions, because it'll do some interesting handheld stuff unless you tell it to just like be static. Static is a good word to use for Luma if you want something to not be moving, especially character. But you can you can say pretty complex stuff. Like I think it's kind of the same as Kling, where it's you want to say what the scene is doing, how it's feeling, what the action is, and then like how the character is responding or what's happening to them. Luma's also really interesting for animations. I was testing this one out the other night where I was like seeing what it would do if just like no prompt whatsoever. I just gave it this starting frame. It gave me this, which I thought was pretty cool. And then I wanted to see what I could do with just text to video to extend it by using this extend video feature. And you know, I was able to make it do some interesting stuff. So for the first one, I just hit extend and it didn't do any prompt, and it gave me this cool spin around. And then for the next one that I really liked, I said that it climbs onto this translucent horse that has the same stringy translucent skin. And it gave me this, which was pretty nice. And then I basically just kept doing that over and over and creating these strings until I got one that I liked, which was this. This one, I just used this starting image just to test how Luma would be with animation. I wrote Sploot walks down a city street, and it gave me this, where it's like totally filled this in the same style and nice walking, which I think is awesome. I'd say I almost use Luma more than I use Kling, but I'm very specific about how I use Kling because it is a little bit more expensive and it's very reliable and it's really high quality. So I like using Kling for that reason. But Luma is just like the experimental workhorse. Luma is do whatever you want, try anything, and you don't have to worry about it. It just takes a while to render. And so where they get you is you end up buying more fast credits to be able to render faster, which isn't a big deal, but you know, it's an expensive hobby in the end of the day. If Luma is my everything workhorse and Kling is my cinematic darling, then Higgsfield is my sniper. It is the tool I'll go to for very specific asks, and it does those specific tasks so well. And I think it's really cool because it's all about these specific camera moves, and it allows you to create moments in your shot list that you know you can accomplish, like with specific camera actions and moves, because you know that Higgsfield can do it. That's a really cool tool to be able to rely on consistently. I would not use Higgsfield for everything. It takes super long to render. It's super expensive. You know, it's very specialized, but it's a great specialized tool. So it's got pretty strong prompt adherence, and I do like leaving this enhance on feature on sometimes because it will do some cool stuff. If you give a small prompt and you turn on enhance prompt, it'll like really stretch out your prompt sometimes and might actually make stuff happen that you didn't expect, which can be awesome. Like in this instance, I didn't write enough. I just wrote like, I think the camera like zooms back or something, and I had enhance on and it just went crazy with it and wrote this really long, extravagant description that added in this whole end element, which ended up being really cool. And I really liked the shot. And it brought this whole different dynamic to what the shot was. I think you can get a lot out of this prompt enhancement if you just take advantage of it and experiment with it, because you never know what you're going to get. If you know exactly what you're trying to get from a shot and you use the right camera angle and you prompt it right, you can get like exactly what you need very easily. But sometimes it is like pretty finicky and doesn't give you what you want, and like you have to be very careful with the words you choose because it's so sensitive. It'll put a lot of objects in if you say something. So like this one, I let enhance on do the prompt for me, and it said the flight ascends, and it was supposed to be a drone shot, and it starts as this drone shot, but then because I think it said the flight ascends, it put in a video of a plane, a flight ascending. So yeah, that's something to be careful of when working with that enhance on, is sometimes it'll slip in words that it might misinterpret itself. It's not going to be perfect. Because I took that out and it did fine. I think a big part in choosing which app you want to use is knowing what style of content you're making and what you're looking for in how you want it to have motion. Because for me, I like doing stuff often with a cinematic style. I like the cinematic realism. And I often put those two keywords into a lot of my prompts. And with that cinematic realism, I want to maintain the look and the quality and the lighting, especially, of the images that I've created when I convert them to video form. And so certain apps don't work as well as others to keep that. But on the other hand, those same apps that might not do well for that realism or that cinematic style might perform really well for animated styles, or for something that, like, you know, you want to look kind of weird and crazy. And so when you're choosing which app you want to use to convert your images to video, that's something to be conscientious of, is like which app you're going to use because of what you're trying to do.